Welcome back to the next installment of the Campbell County Trunk Show presented by Postmark LaFollette right here on WLAF. Remember, you can catch us every second Wednesday of the month at 8:30 p.m. right here on Channel 12 or on the radio at 100.9 FM and 1450 AM. But don't worry, if you can't catch us live, you can always catch us on the WLAF YouTube channel at 1450 WLAF or go to postmarklafollette.org. Just click on Trunk Show and you can see all 5 of our episodes so far. So too, we turn the page from the first part of our series to the second part. So as all of us are kind of taking the time to think about what was and what will be, we're going to do the same. And tonight, we're actually going to go back to a person that we talked to in episode 1. Her name is Miss Jeanette Underwood from the Bethlehem community. In episode 1, we talked to Miss Underwood about heirloom seeds. And that's been the theme of this entire series, is heirlooms. We want to hear about you, your family history, because this is a series for Campbell County by Campbell Countyans. It's meant to be interactive. We want the videos from you, much like this one. And how do you submit them? Well, we're going to have the information up throughout the night on different slides or popping up on the screen. But you can give us a call, you can send us an email, you can contact us on social media. We're on Facebook at postmarklafollette.org. However works best for you, you can reach out and you can record a video just like the one that I have with Miss Underwood with perhaps a person in your family or someone you know. Because one of the things I'm most excited about in 2021 is what I can learn. So I think it's very important for the younger folks like myself in the community to take the time to learn from those that have so much experience over the years, such as Miss Underwood. I know that entire experience for me was life-changing. I think we can all agree if we just take the time to sit down and listen to another person, regardless of age, experience, or background, we can learn something. We can improve and we can make our lives better for the experience. I know Miss Underwood certainly did that for me. Those of you that have watched these episodes may know that originally this project was going to be a roundtable discussion held at the Postmark LaFollette office in the old post office building in downtown LaFollette. But due to the pandemic, we went to an online format to where we can go directly into your homes with WLAF and the internet, but also it opens us up to a whole new world of experiences because we can communicate with you pretty much in real time at any time. So we're very excited about that. So it's always nice in times like these to take a step back and think about how things were, but also how things may be. So let's start that tonight, kicking off the second part of our series here with this interview with Miss Jeanette Underwood. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. So one of the things that we were talking about before too is how with these things that we have growing around us compared with the medicines that you get at a pharmacy. So what are your thoughts on using things like Elderberry Tonic or these natural remedies to help treat some of the ailments that we have?
Well, a lot of times the natural remedies don't have the side effects that the drugstore drugs have. You start reading on if you have a book about the drugs, you start reading them and the list of side effects is terrible on most of them. Oh, I found out about Elderberry Tonic last year, and I got a recipe for it. As we have elderberries growing on our property, and last year I got a whole lot of them, and I made Elderberry Tonic. And one of the key ingredients is honey, natural, pure honey. Not stuff that you buy in the little plastic bearer. It has to be raw honey. It's not been heated, not been pasteurized. When honey is pasteurized, it loses all of its healthful properties. It destroys the healthful properties. Honey is naturally antibiotic, antiviral, but it is naturally antifungal. That's it. Honey lasts for years. We had beehives here before my husband passed away. Some of the bees had taken flight. They had swarmed, and the queen had let them off into the woods. So we lost some that way. But there were still 2 hives when my husband was still alive. But anyway, I've still got honey from back then, and he died in 2005. So I've got honey that we had taken from the hives before 2005. I still got some. It is black as could be, but it's still sweet, and it's honey. And it just doesn't ruin. It doesn't go away. I think that I saw on television that they found honey in some of the pharaoh's tombs. It is just something wonderful that God made for us to enjoy and to survive with. But anyway, the Elderberry Tonic has elderberry in it, and ginger, and I think there was one other thing. I'd have to go get the recipe to tell you. And you cook it, and what I did, I can it, seal it, so that it's just like some food that you can. I seal it. I don't put the honey in, and I put on the label when I give it to my kids or whatever, that when they open it, then they're supposed to add some honey to it. They're supposed to add to a pint of tonic, they're supposed to add 1/2 cup of honey, which means the pint jar won't hold it all. You gotta have another jar to pour it back and forth. But then you can keep it in your refrigerator, and you take it in flu season. If you're liable to get sick, you can take a tablespoon every day. And if you do get the flu, you can take up to 4 tablespoons a day, and it'll help you. We got acquainted with Mr. Silas Bailey years ago. I think he was interested. He'd heard we had some cattle, and he had some cattle, so he wanted to look at our cattle and just talk quite a bit. We eventually bought a cow from him. I remember her pretty vividly because she kicked me in the knee once, and it really hurt. But Mr. Bailey had stopped by the house one day, and when I answered the door, it was in the wintertime, and Charlotte was home with me from school because she was sick, had a real bad cough and cold. And he said, I've got something that'll fix her up, if you don't mind. He said, it's homemade. I said, that's okay. I like homemade stuff. So he went out to his truck, and he brought back a pint jar of cough syrup that he'd made. Now, he gave me the recipe for it. I've never made it, but he did give me the recipe for it. And we both were sick at the time, so we both used it as cough syrup, and it helped both of us. I've always intended to make it, but I never seemed to get around to it. But it was a very interesting recipe, and I still have it. It called for using a wild herb that grows in the woods, and he called it rat's vein, which my mother-in-law had showed me rat's vein before in the woods, and I looked in a book about plants, and they call it a type of wintergreen. But at any rate, you have to gather that rat's vein and boil it a while, and you put honey or molasses in with it and a few other things. And he said, in the recipe, he said you could put in about a half a pint to a pint of whiskey if you had it, which I've never made it, so I don't know if I ever would put that in it. But what he did give us was good cough syrup and helped us. Foxfire books tell a whole lot, and they tell it in the words of old people who really knew. And the thing about the signs is a lot of, a lot of people look at the signs on account of astrology and all that rigmarole. I don't count too much in that. But the old folks did believe in paying attention to what the sign was in. If you had to have an operation or if you had to have a tooth pulled, you didn't do it when you didn't have a tooth pulled when the sign was in the head. Or an operation, like when the sign was in the heart or the belly, you'd wait until it was in the knees or down in the feet because it was safer for your body then. You'd react better. And farmers, if they had cattle to fix, to castrate or something, they would make sure the signs were right so that the animal wouldn't bleed to death. It does make a difference. No matter how much some people scoff at it, a lot of people have proved it. It does make a difference. I know they say if you're digging post holes to put up a fence, if you dig them when the moon is on the increase, that's from the new moon up until the full moon, you'll have all kinds of dirt to scatter around, because even though you put a post in there, you just won't have you'll have too much dirt, and it'll never set up good to where it'll be solid. You have to dig your post holes after the full moon and into further into either the third quarter or the fourth quarter, and you won't have enough dirt, but your posts will set tight. And I've experienced that because I dug a lot of fence post holes in my time, and I know that's true.
And
at the time I was digging them, I didn't know about digging by the signs. I just knew when I read about it later, I thought, well, that's why I had so much trouble with those fence posts.
Postmark LaFollette is a collaborative creative placemaking project to establish and maintain the Arts, Culture, and History Center within a historic structure in order to strengthen social and economic opportunities for the public through the arts.
We're happy to have Tony Thomas back here at the Postmark Jamboree this month. Just introduce yourself a little bit, Tony.
I am Tony Thomas, and I'm a native of here in East Tennessee, born and raised in Anderson County, but I was born October the 2nd, 1944, right here at the LaFollette Hospital.
Downtown LaFollette.
And they took me home the next morning to a little place, coal mining settlement called Briceville, and I stayed there until I was in the 5th grade, at which time my daddy had left the coal mines and he took a job at the University of Louisville with the maintenance department, and we moved to Louisville, Kentucky. And then I came back in high school and lived with my grandma till she passed away. I stayed with her till I was 17 years old, and right there in the little hamlet of Briceville.
What's some of your earliest memories of music or musicians?
Oh, wow. To hear my grandmother sing, and my Uncle Bill Housley, he was a great mandolin player, great guitar player, and a good bass player. He was one of my earliest mentors too, to sit and listen to Uncle Bill, and I learned some of my first music on one of his old guitars. But it's my grandmother and Uncle Bill, they influenced me heavily. Of course, I was influenced by a lot of people that I would hear on the radio. I still remember the midday merry-go-round and a lot of them people. And actually, through the years, I actually got to play with a few of them here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, around the same time the midday merry-go-round was going on, they had the Tennessee Jamboree here in LaFollette.
Right.
And you have some memories of that too, don't you?
I played those places. Amber Longmore was in charge of them. And I remember about 3 different locations right here in Campbell County that I performed with a little bluegrass band I had called Mystery Mountain Boys. But I became friends with Almer and the great Red Harris. Red worked with me a lot at the Museum of Appalachia, bass player. Me and Red was, so we were good buddies. And I worked the last few shows with Monroe before he passed away. We were good friends. And I have a lot of music friends here in this Campbell County area, and still do.
Mm-hmm.
But I played a lot of those programs for Amber Longmore at the Jamborees.
What locations did they used to have the Jamboree at?
I remember one down here at the American Legion. Then I remember one here at the theater, right here downtown, that he had the Jamboree. Then up Powell Valley, he had a real good one up there too. That's the 3 I remember the most. An old fellow named D. Carson had a Jamboree too that I played quite a bit. It was over here on Tennessee. And it wasn't near as big a building, but it was a good building and had a lot of good people that supported country music. I played quite a few shows for him. I think D was from around Elk Valley. But anyway, he promoted some country music around this part of the country.
Now, we were talking earlier about vinyl and CDs and streaming and digital music. Over the years, all that has definitely changed.
Yeah.
What's the earliest recorded music that you think you can recall? Was it 78 records or was it something?
Yeah, I
like
remember
that?
the 78's real good. They used to have this old crank-up Victrola, that we played the 78s on. And there was a good collection of them. People around home there at Briceville, a lot of them had those old 78s, and a lot of them had the Victrolas in their house. But, I've still got, I think, a few of the collections of 78s at my home, and got a lot of the 33s and a lot of the 45s.
Yeah. Vinyl sort of made a little bit of a comeback in the last few years.
Well, I'm glad it did. My first record was a 45.
Yeah.
And it had 2 of my originals on it. That's back when I was with the Mystery Mountain Boys. We were together as a band for way over 25 years, and we wasn't only bluegrass. We played a lot of other stuff too, and we worked a lot in Campbell County. We sure did. And
Where did you record that 45?
Cumberland Records in Oliver Springs. Fellow's name was Mr. Hal Duncan. He was a dear friend of mine. And I done a lot of sessions there through the years for Hal, him and the great Luke Brandon and people like that. I worked with a lot of different musicians. I done a lot of sessions with Cumberland Records and done a lot of my projects there too, as far as CDs and cassettes. And done 1 record album with them.
Now I've got a few of your CDs here that you've given me, and this is Tony Thomas, and the Strawbriar Ridge
Yeah.
registration sessions, and then the Rome County Ramblers.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this CD.
All right. Uncle Jimmy McCarroll was the fiddle player, and Luke Brandon's father was the guitar player. And right off the bat, I don't remember the name of the banjo and mandolin player, but they were popular back in 1920s, and they've done several recordings, and they made some hit recordings for the time period. Uncle Jimmy was a composer of instrumental music. He wrote a song called Hometown Blues, and later on a duet by the name of Grayson and Whitter, a blind man, played fiddle and a guitar player. They also recorded Hometown Blues, but they called it Lee Highway Blues. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people know it by Lee Highway Blues, and a lot of people know it by Hometown Blues. But that was one of his major hits for the time period. And Green River March was one of his hits. He wrote that one. And Johnson City Rag, Uncle Jimmy McCarroll was responsible for a lot of fiddle tunes that we hear today. And I first met Uncle Jimmy in the early 60s at the Oddfellows Hall in Oliver Springs. They would have a fiddling contest about once a month. And Uncle Jimmy and his son Charlie, which was my buddy for many years, who played guitar and fiddle. But anyway, they were there, and I got to play some with Uncle Jimmy. Then I got to play with him a little bit in the 80s at Carl Bean's Big Valley Barn over in next to Norris and Clinton. I got to work several times with Uncle Jimmy McCarroll of the famed Rome County Ramblers, but a lot of history with these people, a lot of history. Uncle Jimmy and all his boys played. Tommy McCarroll, he's a great friend of mine. Of course, he's gone, and Charlie just recently left us. And Charlie and I were in the band, the Sawbar Ridge Ramblers. Charlie was a phenomenal fiddler, and he wasn't altogether old time. He could play bluegrass, country, or blues. He could do it all on a fiddle. And his style was much like that of his daddy, Uncle Jimmy. A lot of fiddle history in them people, McCarroll's there.
You've also written a book, Boyhood Memories, Tony
Yeah.
Thomas as a young boy growing up in Briceville, Tennessee. If someone wants a copy of the book or the CDs, can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can contact me.
I'll put your address
And email and everything.
email
Yeah, and I can get them out to them.
on the screen when we do the.
That's very interesting. That's through the eyes of a young boy, the way I seen it when I was growing up. And it's all true. I don't write no fiction.
Now, you've written probably at least 100 songs, I believe. if
Yeah,
not
at
more.
least.
Tell us a little bit about your songwriting process. How does that work?
Well, I'm usually inspired by something that happens. A lot of times it could be of a sad nature and sometimes of a happy nature. But there's usually 99% of my songs are true story songs from things that's occurred in my life or other people's lives that I was close to. And I like to say all my songs have a story. Now, I wrote some humor stuff that didn't have a story behind it. But for the most part, I've written a lot of Christian music, gospel music, and what some people would regard as bluegrass or country. But I've wrote a lot of songs, and it's all about something or somebody. And it's funny how that happens. When I'm inspired to write, it comes to me. The lyrics comes to me most of the time real fast. Sometime it'll be 2 or 3 days before I'll finish one. And sometime I'll finish one within 10 or 15 minutes. And the music melody comes at the same time. I don't know how to explain it.
Now, all the songs we've recorded today were all original.
Yeah, they're all mine. Yeah. Yep. And some of them were 10-minute jobs. Some of my best works was written within 10 or 15 minutes. I've even had a few that I dreamed, and that next morning I'd get up and write it. Actually, have.
Well, we're glad to have you here at the Jamboree this month, and we'll be sure to get you back. And,
Well, I'll be looking
we
forward to
appreciate
it.
you coming and joining in with us, and we're out here in the lobby
Yeah.
beside the old post office boxes today.
I'm glad to be with you, Tony. I always enjoy coming up to LaFollette and being with you and all these good folks. A lot of good friends here.
A lot of good
It's
memories.
like coming home.
All righty, well, we appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
And before we say goodbye for this episode, I'd like to remind you once again that we want to hear from you, your stories, your family history, and whatever you'd like to talk to us about to share a little piece of you in Campbell County with us. Now, we're going to put up one more time before we leave you tonight all the information of how you can do that, which once again, we keep as simple as we can. You can call, you can email, you can use social media. We just want you to reach out and chat with us. And with that, we'll sign off for tonight. Remember, we'll be right back next month in February on the second Wednesday at 8:30 p.m., and we hope to share some of your stories at that time. Talk to you soon.